Welcome to the football show, Monday edition. Paul Kuharsky, Braden, Gall, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Not a moral victory Monday, Paul. An actual victory on the road against the probably AFC South champion Houston Texans in a game that has a little bit more meaning than most other games in pro football in the AFC South. And of course, if you want to get into the comment section, please do so. I see some of you folks already jumping in there. Trevor, good afternoon. Good afternoon to you. Paul, good afternoon to you, and good to have you back in Nashville, sir. How are you?
Good to be back. Actually made the rare Sunday evening return, so it feels like I've been back for a day already. Good trip, fruitful trip for the Titans. I suspected they would beat the Texans in one of the two games. I did not necessarily suspect it would be the one down there. First road win since Green Bay in 2022, I think I saw, which is
the Todd Downing game. Yeah.
Ending a streak. And that also was the end of the last time they won consecutive games, Denver and Green Bay, back-to-back 2 calendar years ago. So if they can go to Washington and win this weekend against the struggling Commanders, that would be significant. Commanders, of course, looking at that. The Titans are coming to town. We can get help. We can get right.
I was there for that game. 26 degrees, light flurry, not a lot of wind. Traylon Burks, it was his coming of age game, and to which he then disappeared afterward. And I believe that was the night that Todd Downing, of course, was pulled over for DUI back in Nashville. And I don't believe they won a football game the rest of the year that year. So
they're not 7 straight.
All positive things. Eddie says, you know what, to the Texans. That's all. I don't mind cussing on the show, but I'm not going to put it in verbal form, like words. I'm not going to put the words on the screen. I have
you don't get to put it on the screen.
Yeah. I draw a line somewhere, Paul. We're a classy organization. Predemption says, what a difference a weekend makes to one move. Your favorite hockey team beats a division rival. Your college team continues to roll. Notre Dame fan. And the Titans beat little brother in their house. All right, so I'm going to start real broad because I think there's a lot to get to. Tony Pollard, special teams, Will Levis, the offensive line, proof of concept. I think the rookie class is a major talking point coming out of this game for multiple reasons.
Yeah, I've got a rookie that's not talked about enough that I want to talk about.
Not just one. I think there's good and bad, but a lot to talk about with this rookie class coming out of here. But I wanted to say just broadly, because I know you wrote about this on paulkuharsky.com. Go check it out. Special teams, major problem. 8 sacks, offensive line and quarterback together, not taking care of the football in those situations. A pick 6 for the quarterback. Special teams problems, a turnover. A lot of the same stuff we've seen from this team throughout the course of the year. But the offense, very, very good in the first half. Will Levis, much better in all the other plays that he had most of this game, although the offense definitely slowed down in the second half. And they overcame adversity every time the Texans put them in a spot where you might see an emotional confidence problem take place and affect the team. They fought through all of that, and every moment they sort of answered the bell. We can say that the 70-yard touchdown pass to Chig was a little fluky, but it came at the exact right moment. It was a great call, great execution by everybody. When I lay out that as sort of like, here's what happened in the game, what is your broad reaction to the Titans' victory over the Texans?
Well, they played like a start to finish, up and down football game against a team that roster-wise is more talented than it is, and sustained some bad stuff and came out ahead. I mean, that's saying something there. I think they were due for it. More than doubled the point average against 2 teams that were probably better in the Chargers. Not definitely the Chargers, but definitely the Vikings, I think, are better. You catch teams at certain times. They've certainly caught some teams at bad times. I think they catch the Texans at a good time. There's some evening out of some things that happen here that help things happen. They get the break where the other guy misses a field goal, 28-yarder, makeable, very good kicker, had hit long stuff earlier in the game. Make some plays, overcome some stuff, the sacks and everything. Played a better second half than a first half, which is not the way this team is built or functions. I think the what does it mean question, which we can go a lot of different directions on, doesn't really get answered for a couple of weeks. You know, they can go to Washington and lose, and we still don't necessarily know what this game means until they play the rest the rest of these games. How good is Cincinnati? You know, Cincinnati's beatable for sure with a very good offense, but a defense that's allowed a lot of problems. And the rest of the division games, I don't know about sweeping the Texans, but I look, they've got to vault like 7 teams to get into the wild card conversation, and they would have to have a ridiculously good streak to end here, paired with the ridiculously bad Houston streak, so that they're puffing up their chests and talking like, you know, the division's always run through Tennessee. Jeff is talking like that. That's crazy talk, but I think, but there's room here for a big finish. And I think we've said from the start, like, this team should be better at the end than it is at the beginning. And that's how it's tracking.
Well, and we'll get to the rookie class in a minute, but this is, I agree. Starting to talk about playoff conversation seems awfully short-sighted, silly. I think that the playoff conversation comes if you do the things you're supposed to do from now on. And if this team makes progress from weeks 1, 2, and 3, let's say, to where these last 3 games, the way Levis and the offense has played in particular, if that progress continues over the next, let's call it 2 chunks, let's say 3 games and then 3 games, right? Like the next 3 and then the next 3 after that. And if you want to say, look, they take a step forward in these next 3, win or loss, regardless, and then another step forward in the final 3, I think you are setting yourself up for the beginning of next year's season from a developmental standpoint. I think you can point to plenty of things in this game. Like I'm going to, because I know the defense, you've been on the defense sort of all year being like, okay, statistically they're overrated. They don't get stops in critical situations. You know, they haven't made the big turnovers. They have not stopped a single team from scoring points in the red zone until Sunday. Now it happened to be a very short missed field goal, but that's neither here nor there, Paul. Here's what happened with the drive. I thought the defense was the star of the second half, to be honest with you. And frankly, they played very well most of the game. Obviously, the Texans score on a 19-yard play in the beginning after giving up an 80-yard. We'll get to the special teams. But like if you look at their drive chart after they went on the 2 long drives, the Texans go 10 plays, 78 yards, touchdown. I think that was the Collins pass on Brownlee, I believe, on the first play maybe.
Sounds right.
And then there was a 5-play drive, 55 yards with the field goal. So they score on 2 offensive drives that were fairly long and well done by C.J. Stroud. The rest of the game, 2 plays, 0 yards, interception, 3 plays, 5 yards, punt, 2 plays, 0 yards, interception, 2 plays, negative 15 yards, punt, 4 plays, 7 yards. That one was a field goal. Thanks, Jaquan Jackson. 7 plays, 26 yards, punt, 7 plays, 39 yards, missed field goal. That was the one at the very end that technically was a touchdown, if not for the Joe Mixon, 2 players going in motion there. And then 3 plays, minus 8 yards, safety. The defense totally shut them down on the last 8 drives. They had 2 drives over 10 yards the last 8 possessions of the game. I thought they bottled up Joe Mixon most of the game. You look at Tony Pollard running the football on the other side. We can get into all this different stuff. It's sort of a meandering conversation, but I thought the defense made a lot of progress in the second half against a very potent, very talented offense on the road. And frankly, the offense did not help them in the second half much at all. You don't want me to rattle off the drive. Here's what I'll do. They had 8 drives in the second half, the Titans. 2 of them went for 111 yards and 10 points, right? The 70-yard touchdown to Chig, and then the first drive coming out of halftime where they went and got the field goal. The other 6 drives for the Titans in the second half, 21 plays, minus 3 yards.
But Braden, in totality, this second half is a big improvement. I think they averaged
I agree.
2.9 points the second half or fourth quarter, and they scored 12, 2 of them by the defense. But 12-point second half for the Titans is a significant deal, and they closed it out. They got points at the end. And again, they had good luck with the field goal miss by Fairbairn, but they did the things they needed to do in the second half to make the first half to stand up. And I do think you're right. The defense more than offense. 4 sacks after no sacks in the first half. The sack story kind of flipped. And I thought Stroud kind of looked out of sorts throughout most of the game. Some of that's on Stroud, who's going through a bit of a funk right now. But I think the Titans, not as much through pass pressure, but maybe more through coverage stuff, gave them problems. There was the one double timeout scenario maybe where they came back and they had a big third down, and the Titans kind of zone blitzed that. I think Simmons and Sweat kind of dropped, but they brought people from other places. He had no idea what to do there. I thought it was a good game for Denard Wilson amongst others on the defensive side.
Very, very much so. I thought that to boil it down and be super reductive and make it very simple to me, the Titans were excellent on first down, especially in the first half, but in particular, like the big Chig touchdown pass was on first down, so that'll kind of skew the numbers in the second half. But basically, I thought they were excellent on first down in the first half. And frankly, the Texans were in third and long for most of the game. I think that was ultimately the game. And the Titans were able to run the football with Tony Pollard, and the Texans were not able to run the football with Joe Mixon. So very simply put, and you make a mistake in the red zone like the Texans did at the end. And I think Z-Dean nails it here. Seems like Callahan turtled his calls after the pick six. Looked like they were just trying to hold on. I do think that they were playing it fairly safe after that. There's no question about it. Even the Chig touchdown pass was just a pretty standard drag route. So I think they managed the game situation very well. And I do think this is the one time where the defense came up and made a bunch of big plays when they needed to. I mean, again, the missed field goal is the missed field goal. Sometimes you need a little luck, and the Titans got one in that situation for sure.
I tweeted after the drive where the Titans went ahead on Chig's touchdown. This is where the defense can make a statement and show that it's good. And it did. It stopped them there and forced the punt. And that was a big stop in that game for sure. So I think that's a good win to hang your hat on right now at this stage of the season for sure.
I think to sort of wrap up the what does it mean conversation, this doesn't mean they're a playoff team. It doesn't mean they're going to contend in the AFC South.
We got some commenters getting excited by one win. Like, and it's okay. Look, last week, I'm sure they were killing them. And this week, they're like, no, it could happen. I mean, they're only 15 variables.
Fan is not short for logical or rational. It's short for fanatic. So let's let them have some fun here. But I think ultimately the what does it mean thing is ultimately the answer is nothing. It's just one win in the win column. The question is you have to go out and show that the progress you've made, kind of getting back to my original point. If you can take a step forward in the next 3 games and then another step in the following 3 games, the progress from week 1 to the end of the season would have been enough to gain answers and clarity on your offseason plan. And the clarity on the offseason plan is, and I think you've been saying this for a long time, which is Levis is back and will be given the opportunity to start next year. He's cheap, he's talented, he's showing progress. And if he shows a little bit more progress over the next 6 games, there is no reason to think that this Titans team should not go to battle with him. Bring in a veteran to give him some competition and a backstop behind him, and then make the team better around him so that even if he isn't the answer, you've got a better team for that guy to step into. And it doesn't make much sense to move on from him right now if the progress he's shown in the last 4 weeks is going to continue over the next 6. And if it continues, I think you're in a better place at the end of the season than you were at the start of it. And I think that's ultimately what you wanted from a first-year head coach, first-time play caller, first-time defensive coordinator, and first-time quarterback.
Yes. And you're doing it without very big contributions from a lot of your high-priced free agents. Cushenberry getting hurt when he did. L'Jarius Sneed missing at least 9 games and not playing well when he did play. Chidobe Awuzie missing, a huge stretch of games there. A lot of disappointment from a very expensive free agent class. Yeah. If they manage to do this stuff without those guys, you're assessing a lot of those guys after this season, but you can't get out of a lot of it. I mean, how great would it be if they developed Brownlee and Baker at corner and then could get out of at least Awuzie or Sneed? I mean, Awuzie would leave behind $14 or $15 million, and Sneed, I think, $34 million. So you're tied into both of those for another year, begrudgingly, I think. I mean, certainly you like the depth element, but you don't like the financial commitment and the health questions. And so you go into next year, strengthened in your belief on some of this stuff. If these 6 games go like we're talking about them potentially going, but then handcuffed by some contracts that you thought were going to be 2-year guys to carry you, who've proven dead weight. May sound a little strong, but they're going to wind up being potentially redundant.
If so, I've got some thoughts on that. I feel like it's more of like an off-season conversation, but I really like the secondary if they all stay intact for at least one more year, because that means you don't have to address it for any particular reason. You don't have to use any assets, free agent, or draft capital to go.
Well, that at safety you do. Safety, they've got to do something.
I would agree with that. Ed Henry says, name a quarterback or free agent or draft that would be a better option than Levis. Is Darnold's cost worth it as much? I think we've reached the point, again, 6 more weeks of this, 68%, 250 yards a game, giving his team a chance to win games and progress. I think you've answered the question that he's the guy for next year.
I still want somebody better than Mason Rudolph to, even if you're saying that Levis is the starter, who can conceivably supply competition or be a better backup if he's out for 3 games with whatever injury like he was this year, if he messes up his shoulder or something. I don't know. I don't feel great about Mason Rudolph. I'd like somebody maybe closer to Levis. You can't always get a backup that has the skill set of your starter. That's very hard to do because the backup pool is so thin. But there's going to be a crop of quarterbacks that offer you something better than Mason Rudolph, I think.
Z Dean says, am I missing something? Titans just have to beat the Jags twice, Colts and Texans to win the division. No, the Texans they're 3 games behind the Texans. So the Texans would have to lose 2 more other times. And you'd have to be 2 games better than them in every other game you play. So again, 4-2 is a great finish, but the Texans would then have to be like the Texans would have to be 1 and
have 7 wins now.
Yeah. So
no,
that's 3. They're 3.5 games back of the Texans. That's right, 4-3. So they're 3.5 games back. So I don't think it's as simple as that. Austin
also, and when you say that, all they have to do, take in mind, they haven't won back-to-back games in 2 years. And now you've got them winning, 5 out of 6?
Here's the thing. I think 2 and 4 down the stretch with wins over the Jags at minimum makes them finish the season 3 and 4, which is almost 500, which is progress from the first half of the season in theory. I think 3 and 3 is reasonable to root for. I think 4 and 2 is like a dream scenario. And so I think that's where we're at with this. Austin says, say it every week, win or lose. This year is a tryout. Rand's draft picks making progress. Callahan making progress. So far, it's trending in the right directions. Good players playing well enough. Look, so this great. I want to talk about the progress here because I think that's ultimately the story. But I want to tell everybody about Sinkers and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue first. So Sinkers Beverages. I've got the hat on right here if you're watching on YouTube. And they got great gear, great merch. They are an award-winning liquor store. And if you need help with your Thanksgiving meal, please go swing by Sinkers Beverages. You can pick up nice bottles of wine for dinner. They'll help you pick out. You can tell them what your meal is. They will absolutely help you pick it out. I go in there all the time with not a lot of wine knowledge, PK, and I go in there and my wife's like, hey, we need this for this. And it's always something she's got planned for family or whatever. And I go in there and I go, hey, give me, she wants like a medium price Pinot or something. And then like, sure enough, Grant or whoever will run over there and be like, here are 3 good options. What do you think? And it takes all the guesswork out of the process. I don't have to worry about it. I know my bourbon, I know my beer, but I don't know a lot of other things. So know what you know. And Sinkers is great at helping me out with things that I don't know about with their award-winning beer fridge and their award-winning liquor store. So go check them out. Search Uber Eats, by the way, this weekend. Lots of football, lots of imbibing on the on the holiday weekend. So just make sure you use Uber Eats to have the booze delivered directly to your house. No reason to get in the car, folks. You guys know better. So search Uber Eats and Sinkers Beverages have that booze delivered directly to your house. I hope you all ordered Shotgun Willie's Barbecue for Thanksgiving because it's closed. You cannot order it anymore. And they're closed all week this week because you know what? They deserve a break too. But they are back open on Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. They get back at work on Saturday for you guys. So if you need a break from the family, I'm not saying you do, but hypothetically, if you do, on Saturday and Sunday, you can go watch some games, and they've got all the best brisket in town that you could ever possibly eat. So go check out Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. So the progress is fascinating to me. Here we go. Marcus says he went to Sinkers last week when he was in town for the game.
Nice.
I assume 5 stars, right, Marcus? Only 5 stars. If you do not give us 5 stars and you do not give them 5 stars, you are a hater. I think the progress here is interesting, and we'll get to the rookie class. But like Calvin Ridley, major progress. Running game, progress. Tony Pollard's been the best player on the team the whole year. The pass rush got the job done. The defense, I would argue, progress. Like it's hard not to say, well, I don't believe the proof of concept is permanent. It is hard not to be excited at least a little bit as far as a 3-8 level of excitement, right? It's not, it's not Kansas City Chiefs level of excitement here, but a 3-8 level of progress, I think, is all you're looking for. And there's a lot of areas. It's not just Will Levis that has made progress.
Agree. Though, for his 3 games to be as good as they've been, for him to get sacked 20 times in that, he's had a hand in that. J.C. Latham, who, we haven't asked a lot of questions about since the opener and has been very solid, did not have a good game in matchup number 1 of hopefully a lot of J.C. Latham versus Will Anderson games. It was not very sure against him in the first half of this game. So that's one we're going to hopefully be watching for years to come. And I think there'll be 2 high-level players for 2 franchises that are be quite familiar with each other. But the whole thing's progressing in a way that, 15-point losses on average the last 2 weeks weren't reflective enough of the progress. And here you get 32 all of a sudden, which I don't think anybody sees coming with this team. I'd still bet on 17 a week. But that's their second outburst. And this one against a legitimate team. The Miami, the version of the Dolphins that they beat was, a high minor league team based on the people that they had out. So
a scout team.
Yeah.
Basically. I do think Levis's and Andrew says several of the sacks were poor pocket presence. I think you could see Callahan on a lot of those saying either you got to throw the football. I think he mentioned it coming out of the halftime break. I know you didn't see that part probably, but he came out of the halftime break saying we've got to throw the football in some of those situations because they had at the time had 7 sacks coming out of the break. And he did a better job. And I do believe that Callahan played it very safe on offense in the second half, which I'm fine with because they were so good in the first half. And then they got the big pop play from Chig. But I do think like there were a couple sacks where the offensive line actually did a very good job. And if the offensive line is going to do a very good job for 3.5 seconds, Will Levis cannot take a sack. He's got to make a play in those situations. Now, 2 of them, very specifically 2 of them, and we'll get to the other problem in this equation. One of them was Danielle Hunter just cooking J.C. Latham on the outside. The other one was Will Anderson cooking J.C. Latham on the outside. And 2 of them were just immediate, instantaneous sacks. Couldn't do anything about it. One of them was a coverage sack where Will Levis rolled out and probably should have thrown the ball away, but it was also coverage. And then there were like 2 or 3 where he steps up into the pocket where he probably should have just settled a little bit and delivered the football or thrown it away. And he sort of saw a crease and tried to go into it too quickly, and that led to a sack. So I actually think more of them are on Levis this week than there are on the offensive line, which ran the ball very well and gave him time to throw most of the game, relatively speaking. I think this was more on Levis. So that's one area that I assume Callahan is going to work with him on. I
don't think we've seen a lot of throwaways. Like, you remember a ball going out of bounds?
Yeah, I haven't thought about that.
I don't.
He dirts a few of them though. He'll definitely dirt him when he sees the screen getting covered or whatever. But you're right about that. He does not just float it into the third row very often.
So that's a piece of what he needs to work on for sure.
Austin says it's weird watching Levis as a Titans fan. He acts like he has a ton of time. Mariota and Tannehill got shell shocked and inevitably became too tentative. I definitely think he was seeing some ghosts after the pick 6, which was very Jair Alexander-esque, where he just stares down a guy and throws it, and the guy just, Ward has a great series in that turnaround. So
I like it better further down the field, at least. I mean, I understand there wasn't a lot of trouble coming back 65 yards, but at least he had to come back 65 yards.
Well, that brings us to the rookie class. And I actually think on the whole, the rookie class had a very good day yesterday, showing us what they progress and development, except for Latham. I think Latham had the worst day of the bunch.
2 guys then.
So
I'm going to disagree with you on this.
Okay.
I think, you go ahead and run through what you liked, and then I'll come back.
Well, I think the guys who play regularly, Brownlee, while Nico got him on a long pass, I think that particular, you could argue that was on the coverage. Like if you're going to roll up and play man-to-man coverage on Nico Collins and not offer any safety help, I don't know. But I thought Brownlee showed a lot of heart, a lot of fight, and
I like Brownlee a lot.
Reason you like him. I thought Sweat played a pretty good game. And really, there's only 3 guys that are kind of playing regularly right now. So I thought two of them did pretty well. And we can get to J.C. Latham, but he's largely had a good season and largely is developing into a dependable left tackle.
Well, one guy who plays.
That was not it.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
And so one guy who plays regularly that we never mentioned playing regularly is a complete dud, and that's Jaquan Jackson. And he fumbles away a ball. He runs horizontally. He does absolutely nothing on special teams. He should be replaced. They're not going to replace him because they're going to be stubborn like every Titans team in recent memory is with special teamers, and stick with the guy too long. He's adding no value on special teams where they need to at least do something to attempt to offset the massive yardage they're giving up in the return games. But instead, what they're going to say is we're going to catch the ball safe. Oh, wait, he's not even doing that. He's now coughing up fumbles to provide field goals to their team. And fans, a lot of you people in this column have been like, let's see Cedric Gray. Let's see Cedric Gray. Well, Cedric Gray's first play was an absolute disaster. He's the guy at the front of the pile on Pierce, and he has him around the neck and figures, well, that's good for a tackle, and stops playing. And the guy bows out of the tackle, backs up 3 yards and goes, oh, the whole Titans team is right here. I'll run over there, and goes for 80 yards. So I don't know how much Cedric Gray played after that, but clearly didn't have him ready to play special teams because he doesn't know how to tackle. So
it seems like a problem for a linebacker.
There
but
are
whatever.
two draft picks that have no idea how to help the team right now. And they were on the field, not as much as these other guys, but enough to influence the game in a negative direction.
I guess I look at Cedric Gray being on a football field as a net positive.
It wasn't a net
for
positive.
the player.
Net negative.
Okay, well,
Get his ass right back down. But they won't do stuff like that.
I think Latham is proven to be a starting left tackle.
No, Latham's a good player, had a bad game.
Yeah, and I think Sweat and Brownlee, honestly, those are the three players in this class that you can see being dependable pieces long term.
Well,
two of them were very good last week.
What we were told by Rand Carthon is that these back of that roster guys, back of the draft guys, we're going to be guys like they find in San Francisco who are immediate contributors. I think I even asked that, like, is it reasonable to expect these guys to contribute as rookies? Oh, yeah, it's reasonable. Well, the bottom guys, Brownlee is a fifth, is doing a nice job. But we were sold like Jaquan Jackson and James Williams and Jalen Harrell were going to do something. And, they're not doing a damn thing. James Williams is part of the problem on special teams, I think. Jaquan Jackson is a part of the problem on the special teams part that we don't talk about because we're too busy watching the coverage returns, and we're not watching the Titans returns, which are non-factor. Don't sell me that these guys are going to be a help to the team when there's zeros, because they're zeros, right, which is what you should expect. But Rand said, we're going to do it like San Francisco, and our late round picks are going to be of influence year one. I need to go back and look at that quote.
I understand your context on that, but if you have a 6 or 7 man draft class and you have 3 starters, it's kind of it's probably about average. And Harrell's playing a little bit, and Gray's working his way. So,
playing doesn't count.
Fair enough.
I mean, taking up playing on this team for a lot of these guys amounts to taking up space. Jalen Harrell hasn't done anything. Nothing.
Austin says, would Chestnut be a better returner if Spears wasn't an injury risk? I'm not sure I understand why Tajay Spears' injuries tie into Chestnut's ability.
He wants Spears to be the next injury, but next returner, but he don't want to put him out there because he's an injury risk, so he's jumping to Chestnut. Okay, I think anybody's a better option right now.
Yeah, if the question is like who's a better returner, Chestnut or Spears, that's a good question. I get that. I guess I was I didn't understand. I guess I wasn't. Yeah, I would agree. And Chestnut had a nice return at the beginning of the game at the first possession of the first kickoff return. So I don't know. I think you're right about Jackson. It seems like a wasted pick, and that's fine. But where was he? A fifth rounder, sixth rounder, maybe. Yeah. Sixth round receiver.
But you should be able to pick a 6th rounder who can return punts for you. I think people find 6th round punt return. I understand him not being a slot receiver for you, and I'm not asking him to play above Tyler Boyd, but I want him to. He got out returned by Robert Wood.
Doesn't look explosive in practice anymore, Paul. Robert Woods. If you know, it's a deep cut right there. So let's shout out a few guys that played very well because I think that I've been asked this question now on various social media platforms and on radio and on in the comment section about Nick Westbrook-Ikhine's extension. I know you and I have talked a lot about wide receivers still being a primary need for this team moving forward, and certainly that's absolutely the case. Does Nick Westbrook-Ikhine deserve a contract? Does he deserve to be brought back? Does he actually push the receiver need to the second round, and maybe you focus on edge in the first round? Maybe that's what swings the priority there. Ridley's development also is a part of that equation as well. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, all he does is catch touchdowns, 6 now in 7 games. I think that's like one every 3 catches. I think he's scoring a touchdown. I think his dependability of being in the right place allows them to use Ridley on the shot plays. And if you watch Ridley on the NWI touchdown pass, you can tell that Ridley is clearly the decoy on that particular play, and it worked really, really well. Give Callahan and Levis credit for that. But NWI, man, this is a guy that just always in the right place at the right time, and I think he does deserve an extension for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you lose NWI, then that's a guy you got to replace. They don't have a replacement on the roster. You don't want to create holes. You want to minimize your holes, and they've got it down to a manageable amount of holes now beyond depth. So, keep what you can, deal with the manageable amount of holes. I still think ideally he's your third guy. And you
Agreed.
Want a young, aggressive, and fast guy. And the more fast guys you have, the better that is for Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, and allowing him to do things. Like you said, I think Ridley also, and Callahan discussed this in pretty good detail after the game, drew a double team on the other side of the field from Chig that helped create the space that Chig was able to run into on the 70-yard touchdown play. I don't think you'll find anybody that says Nick Westbrook-Ikhine isn't worthy of another contract here. The question is if they can find some common ground with him before free agency comes. I try to put myself in the shoes of a player. I wouldn't sign with the Titans before I got a chance to see what the market had to say, or my agent at least had a chance to feel it out. And once you get to market, if somebody knocks your socks off, you're probably gone. So they should work like hell to make him one of the rare guys that signs something with you before you get to market. And that usually happens sooner rather than later. It's not happening if, calendar flips to March, generally speaking.
Yeah. And it's, like he's one of those guys that he doesn't break the bank to sign an NWI. It should not be a huge cost prohibitive move. He's been a very, very dependable player for this team for a long time now. And it's nice to see him getting opportunities to run the routes that I think he's very good at, which is that route you saw on the touchdown pass was a perfect NWI route, a little double move with a decoy, got set up on a safety and cooked him with technique. He did it with technique and with the scheme, not with overt athleticism, which is what you got to do. And those are good players, man. He's a good player. So, but I agree, no more than a 3, but you got to have good, dependable number 3s, in particular on third downs and play action, etc. So, I give NWI a lot of credit for what he's doing. Tony Pollard is the other one that stood out, and I'm curious if you have any follow-up commentary about the offensive line's running game. It's always been the strength of this team. Pollard's been, I think, the most dependent from start to finish of the season. I think Tony Pollard's been the most dependable and best player on the offense from the first snap until today. I don't think it's even close. I'm not sure there's a player on the team that's been more consistent and dependable than Tony Pollard.
No, I think it's tough to name the second best player on the Titans. I mean, Ridley's been a pretty good player, but it took him a while to get there.
Skoronski in the conversation?
I think Skoronski had a slow start.
Yeah.
I think Latham's probably in the conversation, but he really dented himself yesterday. And if you're talking about some, Simmons has turned it on in the last month, but before that, he was very quiet. I think McCreary maybe could be in that conversation in terms of steadiness. He's been
Monty Hooker would have been on that list until the
same guy
until the illness.
Hooker, pretty consistent, maybe not as much of a playmaker as you'd like from that spot, though he makes his share of plays. But as we look for turnovers from the Titans defense, I'd say there's a guy that maybe you could see making more.
He might be the only guy with 2 turnovers on the year for the defense.
Yeah.
Actually, now that I think about it. But
He's
yes,
not-
of course.
I think Tony Pollard is very much the number one guy with a no clear number two by any means.
I agree with that. Calvin Ridley, by the way, this was on the TV broadcast. 21 targets of 20 yards or more in the air. That is number one in the NFL. The throw Levis made to him, it was fascinating because he's off his back foot a little bit with a little bit of pressure kind of to his side, but a good job by the offensive line. And normally you see a quarterback take a step into the pocket to then cut that loose. He didn't even have to do it. And the other one where he's running to his left and he's falling back and he slings it on a crossing route to Ridley. I mean, I hope that we're starting to see the cohesion, the sort of mind stuff that happens between a quarterback and a receiver, because Ridley's numbers are they're getting very dependable and very good. And those deep shots are the thing that is allowing Pollard to be the player that he is. If you can take those deep shots, it is what makes NWI better. It's what makes Chig better. It's what makes the running game better, because Ridley allows them. Clearly, they target him down the field more than anybody else in the NFL. So you've got to keep doing that to allow the underneath stuff to open up.
It just took too long. Too many things on this team have taken too long. Let's go to Ed Henry there. He says Jackson's listed as the 7th best returner stat-wise. I'm imagining he's talking punt. And if he's averaging 8 or 10 or whatever, he's not had many big plays. He's fumbled at least 3 times. And there are a lot of returns on which he moves laterally and takes his pretty little time, like the seas are going to part and he's going to be able to go. He can, if he's 7th, that's fine. He could be doing better. Somebody could be doing better. And when you're giving up as much as they're giving up, you got to be more risky. And again, they talk about their punt return goal is to secure the ball. And so if you're going to give up 37 yards a kick return and your objective is to secure the ball, I see a real disconnect in the two goals there. And I have a piece up today. I hope you'll go read. I don't think the Titans have a realistic view of how bad their special teams problems are today. Brian Callahan said today, we fix something over here and something else pops over here. It's just like offense and defense. It's not just like offense and defense. I found the statistic where they're like the 4th worst special teams team since 1979. There is nothing they're doing on offense or defense that is that bad. So I don't understand why they want to drag. And I think Callahan's got a great finger on the pulse of his team and all of that. I don't know if this is defensive Colt Anderson or what, but hey, in order to make our special teams not look that good, this is how it came across to me. I'm going to pull the offense and the defense down with them. Why?
No, their special teams are absurd. Damon says, who's our number 1 receiver who has more catches than NWI? And I hate to break it to you, but like almost everyone. Calvin Ridley has 80 targets. NWI has 30. Calvin Ridley has 41 receptions. NWI has 17. Tony Pollard has 33 receptions. Tyler Boyd has 29 receptions. Chig has 24, and they don't use him that much. Spears has as many catches, 17, as NWI, and he's missed 4 full football games. So I'm not trying to be rude, Damon, but Calvin Ridley is your number 1 receiver.
They didn't throw to NWI in the first 4 games at all. They didn't target him. Not that he didn't have a catch. He didn't have a target. Z Dean says, what would it look like? $5 to $6 million a year? Is that too high for NWI? I think that's probably too high. I think you're more in like the 3 to 12, 3 years, 12 million maybe. No, I think you're wrong.
9 million? Oh, it's higher than that. Okay.
I think it'll be. I think he's in the right range. 5. I'm not good at this, but 5.
Would you do 2? Would you give him? I mean, listen, contracts are not made in vacuums, right? It's dependent on so many other things, other teams, other players, other positions of need. Would you give NWI a 2-year, $10 million contract?
I would. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I think you might do better than that. I have to look at more contextual stuff and whatnot. But I think if you're a receiver needy team that needs a 3rd receiver and you can get somebody like him for $5 million a year for 2 years, that sounds pretty inexpensive to me.
Mr. Dependability. James says, PK was right on NWI in the past. The Titans were asking him to do too much. When is the last time the Titans wide receiver developed this well after grinding it out just to make the team in the early years? I think he's got a ceiling, but he's just a really Drew Bennett. He's just a really good overall player. I think ZD nails it here. I think this is the interesting conversation. Levis is best in play action and bootlegs. It's just taken a while to get those calls going. I'll say, I just think This goes back to the Chargers game and the game looking slower for Levis. I think on those play actions and those deep shots and the bootlegs, he is feeling it and seeing it clearer than I think he's had in the past. Like the fourth down where he bootlegged out early in the game on the 4th and 1, it was a very well executed play by everybody on that play. The bootleg to Ridley, the bootleg to Chig. Like I think he's seeing those plays and he's getting more comfortable in those plays more often, faster than I think I anticipated. I think those are clear that they're important. So let's see here. Stevie says they have to fear Will Levis. There you go. And he says it's Callahan's style. He gives you time to become good at the position. Here's another.
What are the examples of that? Who's he given time to be? I mean, he didn't have choices anywhere else, but right. But I mean, like the Jackson thing, he gives you time to become good at the position. I don't. What's the comp to that?
What do you mean?
Like who's comparable to Jackson being given time to get good at a position? I don't think returner is like another spot.
Well, okay.
I mean, they were pulling Burks after 4 weeks before he got hurt. His clock was about 4 games when they had a viable alternative. I
think patience. I mean, they don't have a lot of options around Brownlee, but I think allowing Brownlee to learn from his mistakes is their only. To your point, I think it's their only strategy here with him because I think he's going to be good. But it's clear that he's sort of getting better. Like he's learning how to get better. But again, the patience is the only option there. They don't have a lot of other healthy bodies at that position. I will say this, and I noticed this on the sidelines when Callahan was talking to a couple of different players after some good plays and after some bad plays. They had some close-ups of him, and I think being around him in the press conference and just around practice, I think you'll probably agree with this. I do think he has the right temperament to manage what I would call like an emotional maturation process for the team. I think they are going through like an adolescent maturation process with a lot of rookies and a lot of young players and a lot of, Bryce Olivers of the world, and they need a lot of those pieces to develop, which means there's going to be highs and lows, right? Good plays, bad plays. And I think he has the right temperament to manage those from a teaching standpoint. Maybe Vrabel wouldn't have been the right type of guy to sort of like needle and poke and sarcasm. And, I don't know. Maybe Callahan's like that more than we think behind the scenes, but I do think he has the right temperament to manage their current situation. I don't know if that means he's going to be a good coach or not, but I think it seems like he's got the right mental approach to some of these players. And that's such a big deal in the NFL. Like you got to be able to manage it.
I agree with that entirely. I'm just surprised a little bit by the tone of some of these people. Damon in here saying, tighten up. If you hit that one, they just got scrambled together. I think he's talking about the roster. They just got scrambled together. What do we expect, Paul? I mean, before they won this 3rd game, everybody was up in arms that they were bad. So now they won 1 game, and you're saying, oh, these poor guys, they just got I mean, it's week 12. The roster comes together by week 12. You're now totally sympathetic to like, oh, well, give them 3 years to gel, and they'll be fine. Like NFL rosters turn over. This roster's turned over by about 50% the last 2 years. So are you asking to give them more time? Well, I'm saying some of these developments have been too slow. Don't you agree, Damon?
Well, it's funny. Well, he says the one thing we found out this year is it's going to take a couple of years. It can't take a couple of years. It can take 1 year to learn all that stuff, but then you need results in year 2 for sure. But I guess the part of that question that confuses me is the scrambled part. Like Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan had an entire offseason. And the front office,
very specific people to pick very specific roles in a very specific system.
Right.
It wasn't like they caught eggs falling off the grocery counter and said, oh, we'll take what we can salvage here for $50 million for L'Jarius Sneed, $70 million. That gave up a third for him.
Well, if he's talking about sort of like why Ridley and Sneed became Titans, they weren't necessarily the top priorities, but no front office in an NFL offseason goes into it expecting to hit their number one priority in every category. You have to have a plan of action and orders of operation to go from plan 1 to plan A to plan B to plan C. Just like in the draft, you're not going to get every player you plan to draft with your picks. You have to plan for options. And so I think they did a good job pivoting and being flexible when Ridley presented himself and when Sneed presented himself. Certainly you'd like to get more out of your $70+ million, top corner. But I do think, here's the other thing. I think I am optimistic and positive about what I've seen the last 3 weeks. but going back to the original conversation, I think this is kind of a good way to wrap it up, PK, which is that it only counts that they've learned what they've learned about all these different people, coaches, players, if it continues to progress over the course of the year. Like, you can't, if they fall back into the problem, like the Preds are dealing with this right now. Every time they win a game, they go and shit the bed the next game. Like, you can't, you have to let, the progress has to mean something over time. And that's where you need these next 6 games are not about, and going back to somebody else also who said that if the Titans win all the games in the division, if they win their 4 division games and lose the other 2, they'll be 7-10. That is not winning the division, guys. I'm not trying to be rude to you listeners and audience members.
Houston already has 7 wins.
Right. They're not going to win the division. Houston would have to lose the other 4 games that they're playing. So I don't know how that works at all. But I do think that the progress, you could see progress with 3 wins, with 2 wins, but it has to be accurate data that Brian Callahan, Denard Wilson, and Rand Carthon has learned about his team so that they can then add more players, add depth on the bottom of the roster, add some more starting pieces in the draft and in free agency. And then all of that needs to then show progress next year. But I don't think it's year 3. I don't think it's, hey, give them some time, year 3. Like, this is the NFL. It's a 2-year progress.
I'm also not falling for this. Even if they finish the season with nice momentum and look like they've got things going, I'm not doing the, well, they're going to pick up from here and they're fine. You start every year new. We don't know what moves they'll make in the offseason, who they'll lose, who they'll get, who will get better, who will get worse, and all of that. Sorry. And I overbought the bring it back and run it back for Vrabel's last year. And I overbought, though I told people to be cautious, and I thought it was a third place team, and it might wind up being a third place team. But I overbought the free agent class, even as I warned people, hey, the team that wins in March generally doesn't do so well in September, October, November, December. But I'm not going to do this offseason with, they were on the upswing at the end of 24. So they're going to be good in 25. They're going to have to prove it.
No, I mean, everything is down by down, week by week in the NFL. It's a meritocracy. You got to show progress. I just think that there's reason, like, you can, like, again, we've talked about Shanahan's 0-9 start. We've talked about Dan Campbell's 4-19 in 1 start. Like, you need to build this stuff, and then it start, like, again, with Levis, boneheaded mistakes, like insanely ridiculous mistakes in the first 2 weeks of the season, right? Well, he's eliminated those. Then it was just a regular mistake, right, against Green Bay. Then it was injury, and you got to get now you need to be happy with the mundane and the boring. That started to happen. You stop the turnover. You start hitting the deep shots. Calvin really starts becoming a part of the game plan. The game slows down, and you're starting to – now he's got to start, now get rid of the football if you're getting that kind of pressure. Don't step into the pocket. Like, there's still mistakes he's got to work through, but there's plenty of progress from week 1 to today. And I think as long as that continues with everybody, there's reason for, all right, I think Callahan can be the head coach. Okay, I think Wilson's going to be the DC. I think Levis can be the quarterback. Like, those are the big ones, and I think you're starting to see that. But none of that matters if you go if you go get blown out 3 straight games here and you're not competitive and you don't show the like, then all the goodwill is gone. And again, I realize goodwill for a 3-8 team is relative. I understand that.
Right, but then they'll come back. The Titans will come back and say, well, remember that good stretch we had in the middle of the season? That's what we're building on. The good stretch where we lost 2 out of the 3 games, but Levis looked good. Yeah, put that on a poster and market it.
I hear you. Folks, Marcus says, folks always confusing winning the division games with winning the division. Teams with the best record wins the division. Division record is the first tiebreaker. Yeah, I feel like that's something I shouldn't have to tell NFL fans. But
if there are people in here who need to be told that, I'm really disappointed.
Yeah. I would be as well, but I don't think anybody would be like that in our conversation here.
Let's hope not.
Look, for them to play better against one of the toughest parts of their schedule, it's okay to be like, hey, I like what I'm seeing so far, but it can't be the end of the line. You got to keep going. There's got to be a lot more progress. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. Of course, I hope everybody has a great and thankful and wonderful holiday. The other shows across the network are going to be live on Tuesday this week, so you're going to get Predators content and college football content on Tuesday instead of Wednesday. Nick Suss and I are going to record early for you guys this week on the Thursday episode. That should be up as well. So make sure you stay tuned for that, for a big preview coming up, of course, of the trip to Washington this weekend. Do you get like Thanksgiving with the family though, right? Like, you're not leaving until like Saturday, right?
Oh no, yeah. I mean, but the Titans are practicing and having availability. They're compressing it. And they'll be done by about 1 o'clock, so I'll be out there. But I think Paul Kuharsky podcast will be Friday afternoon from Ed
Good.
Lee's.
That's good.
That
From where? From where? All I heard was Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Is all I heard.
From
boop. Just bleep it. No, it's good. We love a lot of barbecue joints in this town. Are you a let me ask, I don't like doing like holiday radio, but this isn't radio, you know, like this.
Do not ask me about a side dish.
No. I want to know. I was told this by somebody on the network last week that they smear their mashed potatoes on the cold turkey sandwich the following day. And I am asking everyone I know if that is a real thing that happens in people's lives, or is that just something this one person does?
I'm going to tell you the real thing that happens in people's lives is no one gives a shit about what I eat for Thanksgiving or how I eat my leftovers. You said you're not going to do a radio thing, and you're doing a version of a radio thing.
I'm doing an ad.
I don't put
an ad.
I don't put smashed. I don't put any potatoes on my sandwiches.
I'm getting smoked turkey from Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. And then after we're done eating it on Thursday, I'm going to have nothing but cold sliced, beautiful smoked turkey sandwiches all weekend. And I was told I need to put,
I was heating it.
Heating it. Is that what you said?
I don't really want a cold sandwich of what was hot meat. I generally reheat.
You don't like anything cold the next day? Like cold pizza, nothing?
No, like turkey off the bone, I would eat like cold white meat. But otherwise, I'm bigger on reheating.
Do you reheat the whole sandwich then? Or do you just not eat sandwiches? Are you a communist or a terrorist or which one?
I'd rather not have it as a sandwich. I'd rather have it as a portion, at least for the first.
Well, that's fair. And you don't reheat it in the microwave, right? Like you reheat it on the stovetop, please God? Because otherwise that
depends on my level of irritability, convenience, and time.
How irritable are we currently right now on a scale of 1 to 5?
Yeah, I'm ready for a nap. Irritable.
All right, that's good. It's about 4 o'clock. It's time for a nap. All right, thanks. Happy Thanksgiving to Damon and Marcus and to Predemption and Z Dean and to all you folks, all you guys who listen and pay attention. We do appreciate you guys. Hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And please rate, review, and subscribe on the podcast app. Thumbs up, of course, on the YouTube page. Notifications on, and share the product on Twitter and Facebook as well. And again, I don't understand putting mashed potatoes on a sandwich, but I might try it this weekend. I might try it. Sinker's Beverages as well for all your great holiday needs. They've got great selection of wine, award-winning retail craft beer fridge for all the great Nashville local breweries that are there. East Nashville Beer Works and Bearded Iris and Tennessee Brew Works and, you name it, they're there. Southern Grist and you name it, they're there. So make sure you go check them out as well. Otherwise, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue closed for the holiday until Saturday and Sunday. So get out of the house and go get you some brisket on Saturday and Sunday. Otherwise, PKPaulKuharsky.com. Go sign up. You got the Paul Kuharsky podcast as well. Anything else coming for on the website for the good folks today or this week?
Mike Herndon on Wednesday. I got a variety of directions I could still go tomorrow, but go read about special teams and Blake Bedingfield's review of the game still hot off the presses.
Yeah, 8 sacks. Got to do better on that department. That's 20 now, I think, for Levis in the last 3 games.
Yep.
It's not good. It's not good.
All the other numbers are good.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely correct. And so we'll see. Look, I said this last week on the show with you. If you'd have told me he was going to complete 68% of his passes for the season, Titans fans would have taken that in 2 seconds. For a guy that accuracy was supposed to be the thing, pretty accurate down the field the last 3 weeks. So we'll see what happens moving forward. Otherwise, have a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy rivalry week in college football and enjoy the Titans on Sunday. For PK, I am Braden. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you guys on Monday.
Cheers.